r/AskReddit. Ladies of Reddit, what is the creepiest thing your boyfriend past or present has ever done? Check my breath and vagina. If I was 20 minutes late home from work, even if I told him I was going to be working a bit late, I bought him a helmet that fit him, because I have horses and give riding lessons and wanted him to be able to ride with me if he wanted to. I used the helmet for an overweight student who wouldn't fit into the normal helmets, and it got pretty dirty, so I put it in my car to take it home to clean it. He found the helmet in my car, smelled it, and declared that I must be cheating on him and having other men to the barn to ride with me. He never gave in on that one, even though he knew I gave riding lessons and used my stuff for students all the time. Would go through my phone, find every picture of male human. Some were pictures of my brother and me, and demand explanations and why I was hanging out with these men. Thought I was in love with a guy who worked graveyards at my work, even though I literally saw the guy a total of half an hour a month when he would come in early for mandatory meetings. The guy wasn't even attractive. Ugh. I spent a lot of money on an awesome costume for cosplay/Halloween that involved wearing a green bodysuit. It would be worn underneath the rest of the costume, and he threw the entire thing out, suit and all accessories, because he thought I was wearing it for male attention. It was a fucking Dr. Oxo costume, who is the least attractive possible person to dress up as, and I didn't even look like a female in it. If I went out, I had to take pictures throughout the night and show him the timestamps and GPS info, and God forbid there were any gaps. 1.5 years. Extreme jealousy is seriously a mental illness. So glad I got out of there. A former boyfriend of mine was really into comic books, and I was too, so I didn't see anything wrong with this. But the longer I was with him, the more it became apparent that in his mind he lived in them. He would always compare me to women in comic books, sometimes asking why I can't look/act more like them. He would talk on end about how he just knew he was a superhero, completely detached from reality. He would warn me about how he was a quiet guy, so I should watch out, because quiet guys are more likely to snap than anyone. Then, one day, he shows me a Batman fan script he had written. It was all about Robin kidnapping and brutally torturing/murdering a variety of supervillains. And the dialogue, you could tell he was directing it towards his high school bullies. It was really uncomfortable and really creepy. Oh, and I have health problems, and one time after I fainted, he dragged me to the bathroom and undressed me and fingered me. He was so confused when I got upset and told me I should have been honored that he liked me enough to do that. When I was in high school, an ex-boyfriend guilted me into not breaking up with him by telling me he would kill himself if I did, and it would be my fault. Like a sucker, I relented and didn't go through with it. Every few days I'd try again, all the while getting progressively meaner, because frankly I didn't want to listen to him talk about how the only thing keeping him alive was my love. At one point, after we'd spent the night fighting over why he couldn't just let me break up with him, he brought me a knife and asked me to stab him, and told me that all this talk of breaking up was going to kill him anyway, so I might as well get to enjoy it firsthand. Eventually he dumped me and then acted like it was his idea the whole time. Glad to say he outgrew the creepy and apologized a few years later, but man, at the time it was a total nightmare. Oh boy, here we go. So when I was 14 there was this dude, let's call him Jason, because that's what he told me his name wasn't his real name. It started out long distance and eventually he came to stay with my family for a week. Boy, do I regret that. In the space of that week, he forbade me from showering so he could, and I quote him directly here, appreciate my musk. Called me David numerous times, too many to be a coincidence. I'm a girl. A girl who is not named David. Told me he was named Jason and was 16. He was not. I still don't know his real name or age, because the 6 other girls who also went through this shit all got different answers. I woke up one night to find his flaccid penis on my face. He used to pick his scabs and leave them on my windowsill. Told me that his dad was dead, then spoke to him on the phone. On the same day, cut my name into his arm. Left me a lock of his hair. I dumped him by text after he left. Who knows what he would have done if I did it in person. A bit late to this thread, but I must reply. This is my time to shine. My senior year of high school, I started dating Brandon. His real name because fuck him. Started out fine-ish. I was in high school and dumb. Many events led up to this, but I'll focus on the culmination of it all. I stuck with him through an entire year of college. 3 hours away. The crazy was easier to handle from a distance, but I knew when I returned we would be breaking up in person. The very last night of my freshman year, a friend was throwing a birthday party. A different friend, Kat, was going to drive me home and spend some time with me in my hometown. We packed up her car and, at the last minute, decided to go to the party instead. I text Brandon to tell him I'll be home the next day instead. Total delay of maybe 12 hours. Well, this was apparently too much for him to handle. He called me. He yelled at me. He begged me to just please come home, baby. He got in his car and drove 3 hours to my dorm. Luckily, I had moved all my stuff out, and my RA knew this. Brandon had gotten himself banned from the dorm earlier that year, so he was quickly intercepted. He had no idea where my stuff was, or where I was. He called me from campus security office in a rage. After about an hour of arguing and me insisting that we need to break up for good this time, he gets suspiciously calm. He begins to tell me that it's okay because it's not your fault. So nonchalant. I know Kat is the one putting these crazy ideas into your head. She just doesn't understand. But that's okay. I'll just burn her house down with her family inside. I had this boyfriend in high school that was a really sweet guy. He treated me like a princess, made me feel beautiful, had low self-esteem back then, listened to my dreams, and helped me through several panic/anxiety attacks. He had a weird group of friends that I never really trusted, but 2 of them were severely twisted. For example, right after Columbine, dating myself here, one of the 2 twisted ones came in wearing a trench coat and hiding a nerd gun under it. He thought it was hilarious. Anyways, one night, towards the end of the year and close to prom, we all went out to see some stupid movie. The kid who wore the trench coat started picking on my BF, just saying all this nasty stuff, and my BF just lost it. Ran out of the theater and across the parking lot, heading towards the busy road. Somehow I managed to catch up with him and was using all my strength to hold him back, with another girl helping me. He kept saying all this crazy stuff, like he was an alien and he wanted to go back home. Kept trying to get loose of our grip and jump in front of cars. We finally got him back to the movie theater and I drove him home. I stayed over, his parents were home, and I slept on the couch after calling my mom and telling her what happened. The next day he was in a panic, trying to claw off his own skin, saying he wanted to go home, just crazy. His parents took him to the hospital and I went home. He stayed in the psych ward for the rest of the school year. That summer I decided to go to a private high school and I went to see him at home to tell him. He flipped out, calling me every name in the book, saying I was his soulmate, saying he would kill himself if I left. I had to go, so I did. A few years later I ran into him, and he seemed fine and even apologized for putting me through that, but it was just also weird. I'm late to the party, but I have a great one. Started dating a guy the summer before 9th grade. It was my first boyfriend, and I was obviously excited. So we hung out a bunch all summer and everything was normal. He brought me to a secondhand serenade concert because I was an emo shit and I loved them at the time. But then school started and he started acting really weird, but I was like, whatever, high school is weird. Then slowly I start noticing he's like weird. But I didn't break up with him, mostly because we didn't see each other much, and my friends and I were so invested in how weird he was that we wanted to see where it went. Couple months into the school year and dude bro tries to convince me he's a fucking angel. Not just any angel though. Oh no. That would be too simple. No, he was Archangel Michael. And he was fighting a war against Lucifer. This guy was actually trying to convince me he was an angel. I'm not even Christian, and he knew that, but still tried. So I played along for a little bit because laughs. It got creepy when he told me he used to fly to my apartment and sit on my roof or come into my room if my parents left the patio unlocked. Obviously I knew he was bullshitting, BC not an angel, but also because I was an insomniac and would usually be up working on homework or drawing when he's blowing up my phone with "oh you look so beautiful when you sleep" texts. Important side note, I lived on the 3rd floor, but my parents would still lock the patio door every night because we are a family of paranoid little shits. Another side note, between the first and only time he had been to my apartment and the time that this is all taking place, my older brother and I had switched rooms because we thought it would be a funny prank on my parents and just never switched back. So all that's happening, my friends and I make jokes and have laughs. One weekend we have a sleepover at my place because parents are out of town and my brother was cool. He had a general idea that I was totally uninterested in this guy at this point because, well, he was weird. So it's like 1 AM, my brother and his girlfriend are in his room watching a movie and my friends and I are in my room listening to music and just hanging out, kinda half doing homework, when I get a text from CREEPIEST asking if I'm still up. I ignore it. We make jokes about "oh no he's gonna fly into the apartment and find us all awake," and ignoring his messages. I get another message saying it's bad to sleep with the TV on because it'll give you demonic dreams. I don't even have a TV in my room anymore. I got it taken away for sleeping in and missing my bus too often. But whatever. Probably 15 minutes go by and I hear my brother yelling from the patio and we're all like what the hell, do we go check it out? And his girlfriend is in the living room and she just kind of gives me this look like what the fuck. So I go out to the patio and lo and behold, Michael the Archangel is standing in the grass in front of our building. Not literally, but you know. Apparently he had been throwing rocks towards my brother's window, thinking it was mine, and he was being romantic. The gist of what my brother yelled at him was "stay the fuck away from my sister you weird ass dickhead, or I swear to the actual god that I will throw my cat at your shitty human face." Never talked to him again after that. The messages stopped. He must have altered his hallway paths because I never saw him at school anymore, although it was a big school and if you weren't looking for somebody you probably wouldn't find them. It is still my favorite story to tell about any of my exes, though. Also, if anybody cares, my brother married that exact girlfriend like 6 years later. Not as severe as most of these other posts, but I was pretty creeped out. When I was 15 I dated a guy 4 years older than me for 3 years. He was my first boyfriend, and 15 is a weird age. I was still learning a lot about myself and how to deal with people, so I put up with a lot more bullshit than I would now. A lot more. He was very emotional and passionate. He also suffered from pretty severe ADHD and was heavily medicated, which I think contributed to his eroticism. Anyway, we would get into these long high-spirited arguments during which he became very loud, threw things, punched things, etc. We were having one of our more intense disagreements when I got my shit together and told him I was going home. He ran out to my car and unplugged a bunch of shit under my hood. I didn't know what any of it was or how to fix it, so I just ran and hid down the road in some bushes and watched him look for me for a while. His need to control is what was ultimately so creepy. He always had to be in control. Even if we had a simple, meaningless difference of opinion, he would argue and be angry with me until I agreed with him. Like, we don't have to agree on everything. I haven't seen him in 6 years and the few Facebook interactions I have had with him have proven he has all but changed. Just insecurity hiding behind ego and in need of utter control. This was many moons ago, and he was my first BF. First kiss, first sex. He came from very wealthy parents. I was raised in foster care. Anyway, one night his parents were throwing a party at their mansion. He and I were up behind on some cliffs overlooking the back patio and could see the merrymakers. As we started doing the dirty, he began to bark, growl and snarl loudly and very angrily at the revelers below us. We weren't high or drunk. I knew he didn't get along with his folks. This was maybe the third or fourth time for my sexual experience, and there he was on top of me, pumping away furiously, looking over past my head at his parents and their friends, behaving and sounding like an enraged dog. Needless to say, I broke up with him. I didn't say anything to my foster mom. At that age I simply didn't have the words to explain WTF had happened. I just said I didn't like him anymore. BCS, I had been seeing a counselor for a couple of years at that point. Her and my counselor decided to force me into couples counseling with him. He was all for it. I was mortified. He and I would see the counselor separately and then as a couple. I still never told anyone what he had done. I just didn't know how. I was 15. He was 16. But whatever he was telling my counselor, now our counselor, made the guy start looking at me and talking to me like I was some sort of teenage Jezebel. In the end I found out the reason I was being forced to be his GF was BCS. He went to private school and had wealthy parents. So my foster mom and my counselor decided, being poor white trash, I couldn't do any better than him. So I got creeped on not only by him, but by two supposedly reasonable adults. When dating, would repeatedly tell me how, if I ever cheated, he would kill me, the other person, and himself, while crying and trying to be romantic. In fights he threatened to tell my very religious family about our sex life. Took tons of pictures of me while I slept. One day while on our computer I found pictures from my old MySpace, from when I was in high school. I looked at the date the file was saved. It was way before he and I started dating. Come to find out, he had been obsessed with me since high school. I had met him once in high school. He told all his friends how I was going to be his one day. When we finally broke up I was trying to stay in the front of the house so I could easily leave and stay away from his gun in the back of the house point. He noticed and said, "Don't worry, I should have killed you already." Where do I start? We broke up 9 months ago. He messages / calls relentlessly every day and has broken into my flat 3 times because he wanted to know what guy I was fucking. I got a restraining order against him and he still emailed me constantly and got his friend to text me abuse. He sent me 50 texts in one day accusing me of sleeping with just about every man we know and telling me he raped me while I was asleep. That's what got him arrested. So now it's gone to court and he has pleaded not guilty, so I have to go to court. Yay. When your friends tell you not to get with someone, listen to them. Lust is a powerful drug that completely blindsides you. Not my ex, but my sister's ex-husband. He always gave me weird vibes, but I blew it off. The day they moved into their new place I stayed over and we all had to sleep in the living. In the middle of the night I woke up to him standing over me, breathing really heavily. I was freaked out and pretended to be asleep. My sister woke up and was confused, asking what he was doing. We both assumed he was sleepwalking and let it go. Forward a year later and he attempts murdering my sister by secluding her in the woods and beating her with a crowbar. She managed to escape and received 20 staples in her head. Another year later and he brutally beats another woman. I later found out he would beat my sister and told her if she ever left him that he knew where I worked and would kill me. The judge in town has some relationship with the family and he is still running free today. Bit of a story, but we broke up almost a year ago. A week after the breakup he showed up at my house and spent 3 hours berating me, telling me I was obviously mentally unstable and needed him to fix me. When that didn't work he threatened to kill himself if I didn't get back together with him. I threw him out of the house and he proceeded to pin me to a wall and get his final goodbye kiss by force. After that, I'd see him drive by my house while I was walking the dog, trying to see if I was there. I'd see him around my doctor's appointments, out shopping, etc. etc. Right around here I started finding nails in my car's back right tire. Luckily it was a run flat under warranty and I knew how to use the spare, so I was never stranded. I thought at first it was just bad luck, until I put together a timeline of the issues for the tire company and realized it always happened within a week of heightened stalker activity and always happened when I was going to be home alone the next morning. I was never able to definitively prove it was him, but I do have grainy surveillance photos of someone with his build smoking while pacing next to that tire. He went through a pack or two a day while we were together. I hate saying this, but luckily he died a couple months back, so I'm safe now, but I still get panicky when I see a certain color and make of car around. Edit. I forgot the worst part. I was informed of the death by a friend of his because he'd been telling everyone he knew we were still together. This guy I dated in high school for about a year, all of a sudden he started being totally psycho, but he initially did it in ways that he thought were super subtle, like one time during an argument over text, he replies to me with a pic of about 10 to 15 knives, all unfolded and displayed on his nightstand. This was like smack dab in the middle of us going back and forth at one another, totally out of place. Not to mention I had no idea he even collected knives, much less had any interests in them. His explanation was, "Oh, I was just showing you my knife collection, babe." Then we were in his room arguing late, and mid-argument he just starts swinging a baseball bat. Just grabs a bat nearby, and I'm sitting on his bed. He's standing in front of me swinging a fucking baseball bat. His explanation was just practicing my swing. I tried to leave him after this, and he threatened to kill himself. I stayed for a bit because of guilt, and then realized I couldn't do that to myself. I told his mom about the suicide threats and then bailed. Edit. What makes it even better is that after we broke up, he tried to win me back by giving me a gift. A ring. A ring that I left in his car 6 months prior. I had totally forgotten about that ring. It wasn't even a nice ring, it was from Claire's, and I wore it to prom. But it was super fishy when he showed up with a gift because he didn't have money, so I knew he didn't buy it. At first I accused him of stealing it, but I had a prom picture and remembered it was my own fucking ring, and I left it in his car that night. He tried to gift me with my own fucking jewelry. My ex-boyfriend told me that my cousin's legs were really nice and that he knew that he'd be a good soccer player if he ever tried it. It wasn't the best thing to say when we hadn't even been going out for a month. He started talking about children not long after that, saying that they would grow up knowing how much their parents love each other. I got the feeling he meant more than just being happy together. I broke it off when he searched through my texts because he just knew I was seeing someone else. That someone else that he thought I was dating turned out to be my foster brother, who is 12 years older than me and was in Afghanistan at the time. My current boyfriend occasionally waits for me to wake up in the mornings, just staring at me with as many chins as he can summon. Gotta admit, I secretly love waking up to chins galore. It means I start the day with a giggle. At least he doesn't accuse me of dating my brother. So this is really funny, I hope, but still a bit creepy. Sometimes my husband and my schedules don't match up, and one of us falls asleep before the other. Well, one particular night he fell asleep after a few drinks, and I was dealing with something that I just couldn't shake. Before going to sleep, I decide that I wanna go see one of my friends and talk it out. I roll my half drunk and fully asleep hubby over and ask if he would be alright if I went off to see my friend, and he responded in muffled grunts that eventually turn into a very tired yeah. So off I go without another thought, and I end up falling asleep at my friend's place. The next morning I awoke to a few missed calls and some texts from my hubby. Feeling guilty, I quickly call him back to assure him that I'm safe and that I will come home and cuddle. I get home, crawl into bed, and he snuggles up with me and tells me he missed me. I apologize for falling for asleep at my friend's house. He then says, "Oh, you're fine. I just couldn't remember what happened last night. When I woke up and you weren't here, I thought maybe I had killed you and buried you in the backyard." Then kisses my cheek and falls back asleep. Haha, what? Not creepy as such, but crossed a line. My friends went out partying one night. I stayed in because I had a really bad flu. My friends met my then BF with some of his friends in a bar. He was super drunk, and when he saw my friends out without me, asked them where I was. He knew I was staying in bed. He kept telling them he was going to come check on me. They told him to leave me alone and he could visit me the next day. He decided to go home. One of my friends went out with him, told the taxi driver where he lived and to bring him there. Well, he told the driver to go to my place. I should note, I lived abroad and my accommodation was provided by the company I worked for and had strict rules for visitors. No guests past midnight being the main one. My then BF climbed the 15 feet wall, which had barbed wire on it, and came into my room. I initially thought I was hallucinating from my medicine when I saw him. He climbed into my bed, stole the blankets, took over most of the bed and passed out. I went out to sleep on the couch cause we have a blanket there. My housemate came in around 7 and asked why I was sleeping on the couch. I told her about BF and she was furious since she and my friends had basically told him to leave me the F alone. He insisted it was the most romantic thing he'd ever done. I asked him to never do that again when I'm sick. Thank you so much for watching the whole video. Please leave a like and subscribe.